Have you ever been watching the news and seen this huge blue and white airplane with United States of America written on the side? It lands majestically, the stairs come down, and out walks the President of the United States. Or maybe you've seen pictures of it flying, like a symbol of power just floating in the sky. That's Air Force One, a name pretty much everyone has heard, but actually Air Force One isn't the name of the plane. Kind of weird, right? It's the call sign, the radio call sign for any U.S. Air Force aircraft that happens to be carrying the president. So, if the president hops on a different Air Force plane, that plane becomes Air Force One for that flight. But yeah, the name has become permanently stuck to the two specific planes the president usually flies in now. The Boeing 𝗤𝗂𝗂𝗁𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃, those iconic blue and white twins. Every time I see this plane, I feel this mix of awe and curiosity. I mean, this isn't just transportation, it's like a flying White House, an office, a command center, a fortress, and a symbol of a superpower, all wrapped up in one jumbo jet package. What must it be like inside? What's actually in there? The history of US presidents flying goes way back, long before this jumbo jet era. It started during World War II with a C-54 Skymaster called the Sacred Cow for President Roosevelt. Then came the Independence for Truman, and Columbine II and III for Eisenhower. Actually, it was during Eisenhower's time that the call sign Air Force One was born. It happened because of a small but important incident. Eisenhower's plane, flight number 8610, almost collided with a commercial airliner that had the exact same flight number, 8610. From then on, they decided there needed to be a unique, special call sign for the president's plane so there'd be no confusion. And Air Force One was it. The jet age began with modified Boeing 707s, designated VC-137. One of them, tail number 26,000, is legendary. This was the plane that flew President Kennedy to Dallas on that fateful day. And it was the same plane that carried his body back to Washington. On board that same aircraft, Lyndon B. Johnson was sworn in as president. It's crazy, right? One plane witnessing such pivotal moments. This plane also took Nixon on his historic visits to China and the Soviet Union. Truly a plane full of stories, but times change. Technology advances, threats become more complex, especially around the end of the Cold War. A bigger, safer, more advanced aircraft was needed. And so, the modern queen of the skies we know today, the VC-25A, was born. So there are two VC-25As, tail numbers 28,000 and 29,000. They're based on the legendary Boeing 747-200B commercial airliner. But make no mistake, this is no ordinary 747. It's been heavily modified. The first one entered service in 1990 during President George H.W. Bush's time. Since then, it's served the next 5 presidents. What makes it different from a regular 747? Oh, a lot. The floor space alone is about 4,000 square feet, spread across 3 levels. The interior was completely redesigned. The front section is like a mini White House. There's a presidential suite with a bedroom, dressing room, private bathroom with a shower, and a private office. There's also a conference room that doubles as a dining room. Apparently, the initial interior design was influenced by First Lady Nancy Reagan, with a sort of American Southwest vibe. It's these little details that make the plane feel like it has its own story. Further back, there's space for important guests, senior staff, the Secret Service, security forces, and even the press corps. It's like there's a hierarchy inside the plane. There's even an unwritten rule. Passengers can only walk backwards from their assigned seat, never forward into areas they're not supposed to be in. Very strict. And the facilities are insane. There are 2 galleys, kitchens, that can prepare up to 100 meals at once. The president gets a special menu too. There are 6 lavatories, including one accessible for people with disabilities. There's a fully equipped emergency medical room with a doctor and nurse on every flight. Rumor has it, President George W. Bush requested a treadmill be added to the plane. Can you imagine running on a treadmill inside Air Force One? But its main strength isn't just the interior. It's about operational capability and technology. The VC-25A can refuel in midair. Theoretically, its range is unlimited. It can fly anywhere without stopping. Plus, it's incredibly self-sufficient. It has its own built-in stairs at the front and rear doors, and its own baggage loader. So it can land at smaller or remote airports without needing ground support equipment. Now here's the coolest part. It's defense and communication tech. The plane has over 30 different communication and navigation systems. The president can contact anyone in the world, anytime, securely. Even if modern navigation systems like GPS are down or jammed, like during a war, there's still a human navigator in the cockpit as a backup. Imagine that in this digital age, someone's job might still involve reading star charts or using a sextant. And this is what makes it a flying fortress. All its electronic systems, but which have a total of 238 miles of wiring, double that of a standard 747, are hardened to withstand the electromagnetic pulse effects of a nuclear explosion. Incredible, right? It also has a full suite of military defense systems. Electronic countermeasures, ECM to jam enemy radar, flares to decoy heat-seeking missiles, and chaff to decoy radar-guided missiles. If America were under attack, this plane could become a mobile military command center. All firearms and ammunition are stored in special locked compartments. This is definitely not your average VIP jet. It's a strategic asset. And of course, its appearance. The sky blue, some say robin's egg blue, and white colors, the dark blue cheat line along the windows, and the polished metal underside. This design was chosen by First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy and designer Raymond Loewy back in the 60s for the VC-137. The goal was to look modern, elegant, yet dignified. And the design proved so timeless it was used again for the VC-25A. But no matter how good or iconic it is, time catches up. The VC-25As have been flying for over 30 years. They're getting old. Maintenance costs are rising. Spare parts are harder to find because they're out of production. And most importantly, the technology is starting to lag behind modern aircraft. There are capability gaps, especially in communication and defense. That's why the U.S. Air Force started thinking about replacing them. This led to the Presidential Aircraft Recapitalization (PAR) program. The goal: build a new Air Force One, more modern, more reliable, more advanced. Its designation will be VC-25B. This isn't just about replacing old planes. It's about ensuring the U.S. president can continue to lead the country from the air, with security and connectivity on par with the White House on the ground, facing 21st century challenges. And this new aircraft is designed to be used for the next 30 years, maybe even longer. So the selection process had to be really thorough. Now, the process of finding a replacement was interesting too. There was talk of using the Airbus A380, that European giant, but ultimately the choice fell on the Boeing 747-8 Intercontinental. Why? Probably because it's a 4-engine aircraft, safer, American-made, politically important, and has better performance than the 747-200B. And the way they got the planes was unique too. The Air Force didn't order new ones from scratch. Instead, they bought two 747-8s that were already built, but never delivered to a Russian airline, Transaero, because the airline went bankrupt. So these planes were technically used, but had never flown commercially. They said this was to cut costs. This cost issue became a big deal. President Trump at the time heavily criticized the cost, reportedly up to $4 billion, calling it ridiculous, even threatening to cancel the order. Eventually, after negotiations with Boeing's CEO, they reached a fixed-price deal, $3.9 billion. The government claimed savings of $1.4 billion, but a fixed-price contract for such a complex project turned out to be a boomerang for Boeing. Boeing's current CEO admits regretting taking that deal because all risk of cost overruns fell on them. And sure enough, the costs have ballooned massively. Political pressure for a low number perhaps overruled careful business calculation. The process of converting these 747-8s into VC-25BS is insane. It started around early 2020 in San Antonio, Texas. The planes were completely gutted. Commercial interiors, engines, everything removed. Then, huge sections of the fuselage were cut out to install new, specially prepared panels for unique doors and internal air stairs. The modifications are extensive. Massively upgraded electrical power systems, highly secure communication systems, more advanced medical facilities, an executive interior, military avionics, new defense systems, and self-sufficient ground operations capabilities. Just installing the wiring requires 2,000 wire bundles stretching 200 miles, double a standard 747. And this wiring has to be EMP hardened, non-interfering, military spec stuff. No wonder the project is so complex and taking so long. What about the interior? Highly classified, but the goal is to make it like a flying White House. There was a major issue with the initial interior supplier, which even went bankrupt. This was one reason for project delays and cost overruns. They eventually appointed another company known for Super VVIP Interiors. Then there was the drama over the paint job, or livery. President Trump wanted to change the iconic blue and white design to a red, white, and dark blue scheme, saying it looked more American. A mock-up was even displayed in the Oval Office. But technical problems arose. The dark blue paint on the underside would absorb too much heat. There were concerns it could damage some aircraft components. It would require extra testing, meaning more cost and more delays. Finally, when President Biden took office, the decision was made to scrap Trump's proposed design. And in March 2023, the final design was chosen. Back to blue and white, but with a modern touch. The light blue is a slightly deeper shade. The engines are painted dark blue. And there's no more polished metal underside, apparently because modern aircraft materials can't be polished like the old ones. So it maintains the heritage, but with a slight update. This livery drama shows how national symbols can become political battlegrounds, but ultimately technical and practical considerations won out. So, what are the key upgrades for the 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗏𝗏? Communications will clearly be more advanced, secure, resistant to eavesdropping and jamming. Defenses will also be superior, likely using the latest anti-missile and cyber defense technologies. Medical facilities will be more comprehensive, perhaps like a mini operating room. Self-sufficiency on the ground will be enhanced, allowing it to land almost anywhere. Its basic performance is also better. Longer fuselage, wider wingspan, more powerful and fuel-efficient engines, longer range, and higher payload capacity. But there's one iconic feature of the 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗃𝗏𝗏 that's being removed on the 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗃𝗏𝗏b: mid-air refueling capability. Surprising, right? The reason given is to reduce cost and complexity, so although its basic range is already very long, it won't be able to fly indefinitely like its predecessor. Perhaps the standard range is deemed sufficient, or the scenarios requiring non-stop indefinite flight are considered extremely rare. Oh, one more unique thing. Despite being super advanced, the 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗃𝗏𝗏b will still have a station for a human navigator in the cockpit, just like the 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏. Unfortunately, the 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗃𝗏𝗏b's journey has been turbulent. Costs have massively overrun for Boeing, already losing over $2.4 billion due to that fixed-price contract. The total project cost is now estimated to be well over $5 billion. The schedule has also slipped repeatedly. The initial target for completion was 2024, now pushed back to 2027 or 2028 at the earliest, with some suggesting it could be as late as 2029. A 5-year delay. The causes are varied. The project's inherent complexity, supply chain disruptions due to the pandemic, issues with the interior supplier, shortages of skilled labor with security clearances, wiring design problems, tough negotiations with other suppliers. It's just incredibly complex. As a result, the Air Force has to keep maintaining the aging 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗏s for longer than planned. So, comparing them, the 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗏𝗏b is clearly a generational leap in communication and defense technology. It's bigger, more powerful, and more self-sufficient on the ground. But it loses the aerial refueling capability. It's a trade-off between maximum capability and cost management. What happens to the 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗏s? Once the 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗏s are ready for duty, these queens of the skies will be retired. The plan is for one of them, tail number 28,000, to be permanently displayed at the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum in Texas. Ultimately, the story of Air Force One is about continuity and change. The planes change, technology advances, challenges differ, but the symbol remains the same. The 𝗤𝘂𝗲𝗏𝗏b, the flying fortress of the 21st century, will soon take over. It carries the legacy of the past, but flies towards an unknown future. Despite the project's troubles, its completion remains a priority. Because Air Force One is, well, more than just an airplane. It's the United States of America flying across the world. We'll just have to wait to see it grace the skies.